WNTK News Time 7:26. We're going to forego the bumper music as time's getting short here in the studio. I have Sheridan Brown and Harry Vogel. They are with the Loon Preservation Committee. We are talking about Senate Bill 89, which would regulate the use of lead. It's jig heads, right?
Jigs,
Make sure I'm right. So, because loons are being affected by this. Sheridan, one of the questions that I have for you, we saw in California legislation that came out on bullets. And my fear always with legislation is let me be clear, I like this legislation. I was at a Ducks Unlimited banquet this weekend spending money, so I'm into waterfowl and water quality. The fear that I always have, and a lot of people brought this up, is that it starts with something everybody likes, but then it escalates. One of the fears is, in California, the EPA tried to regulate out lead bullets, saying, oh, these are landing in the water quality issues, and then, of course, the birds came up. How do you make this bill or support this bill in a way that doesn't escalate into really what is a minor issue?
Right. I think the fears of escalation, I don't want to diminish those, downplay those.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly there have probably been some areas of regulatory overreach. This is not one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, the 1998 legislation, which is what we have in place now with some minor changes in 2005, that originally proposed the protective standard we're looking for today, and the legislature decided, let's take a middle of the road approach and go with something smaller. And now we've got another 15 years of data that shows that didn't do it. That wasn't adequate. So I think our legislature and its generally cautious approach, the continued input from constituents is probably the best safeguard here in New Hampshire against overreach. The EPA petition, there's been one with lead sinkers and jigs that people often point to, and say, that's an example of the federal government trying to go too far on this issue. But what I would point out is the EPA in that rulemaking recognized that they considered this not a national issue, and they made the decision on their own to stay within their statutory mandate. They did point to the fact that the Northeast has a unique situation with loons, and that states should take their own action to deal with this issue, which is what we're proposing here. So I think that the EPA has, on this issue, actually made decisions on its own based on the weight of evidence to not go too far. And so we think this is a reasonable piece of legislation. We're not trying to go after anybody's ammunition. This is just looking at what we have actual data showing to be a significant hazard for the state's loons, and something that has creates a real threat for the population going forward.
I have about 20 seconds. If people want to find out more about the Loon Conservation Committee, how do they find out more?
Yeah, please visit the website. It's loon.org. There you can find a lot more information on Senate Bill 89, why it's necessary, and how to weigh in with your legislators if you support this bill.
Sheridan Brown, Harry Vogel from the Loon Preservation Committee. I want to thank you guys for coming in today.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ben. Sports, news, and weather up next on 99.7 WNTK.